as we discussed with the addiction piece of this, it's really hard to know what the scale is of gambling addiction as it's compared to, as we talked about yesterday, the article that I was looking at. The article I was looking at indicated the belief in the medical community is where we're at with gambling addiction is about 30 years ago as it pertains to where we were with drugs and alcohol addiction, because they're still kind of learning about it. Sports gambling as a widespread legal hobby is still relatively new, even though sports gambling itself is not new or gambling itself is not new at all. So we're still kind of learning about, how serious is this? How do we treat it? How do we help people get well? Where do we classify it in the grand scheme of things? There's so many things that are now classified as an addiction. All right, we're short on time here. So Ed Peterson, as I referenced, Peterson Family Therapy, joins the program. Ed, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Spence.
Good. All right. So just real quick, we only have a few minutes, but just for our listeners, Ed you're a specialist in the addiction field. Ed, how would you characterize what you do?
Yeah. I mean, the addiction field is simple yet very hard in that we're talking about people who develop a behavior or taking a substance, usually where they can't stop, they may want to stop, they experience cravings, and it basically is messing up their lives, and they either don't want to stop or they can't stop.
All right, so when it comes to gambling, of course, the big story in college football right now is Brendan Sorsby, who was the number one ranked recruit in the transfer portal, is a quarterback who played at Cincinnati, and he signed with Texas Tech for a reported $5 million fee of NIL money that, of course, he'll get paid by the school. But he was found to have been gambling for a number of different years. As an underage person, was using other people's sportsbook accounts, which is actually a federal crime. He placed 40 bets on his own team, Indiana, to the tune of about $90,000. Anyway, after the reporting came out, I think most everybody, it was kind of unanimous that this kid was never going to play college football again. But his attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, has successfully argued that as a gambling addict, the NCAA, if they take away his ability to play college football, they'll take away his support as somebody who needs to get well. Help us understand, when you treat people that find themselves in a bad spot gambling addicts, help us understand how that relates to other addictions that we're more familiar with, namely drugs and alcohol and such.
Well, here's the tricky part, is that gambling is one of those addictions that can, take people out in literally hours. Now, it sounds like that is not the case with this guy in that he had a pattern over years. But there's always this what I would call it a conundrum, whereby when you're trying with someone with a gambling addiction, it is very similar to drugs and alcohol and other things. However, a big part of treating any addict is to help them understand that they have to be accountable for their actions. Because if they're not, what happens is people get bailed out. And unfortunately, people often do not see their addiction because someone, a dad or a mom or a school or a attorney is basically saying, because of this addiction, this person shouldn't have to deal with the consequences. I mean, Pete Rose got kicked out of the major leagues. And so my concern, I think that it's valid that he needs help, and it's wonderful if he goes into recovery and takes it seriously. It's just that if they find a way to take away these consequences, no matter how serious he may be about his recovery, it's a slippery slope, because deep down he's going to feel like he got bailed out. And the next time that he's thinking about gambling, it may not be on his team. It may be on a casino, whatever it is. His brain will have learned the lesson that he doesn't have to be accountable because people came in and bailed him out.
All right, let me ask you this, because, this kid has now become the face of an issue that a lot of, certainly young men, have fallen victim to because of the widespread, not just legalities, but now the how accessible it is to get sportsbook apps on your phone. And of course, he's been paying millions of dollars to be playing college football. And again, I'm just not educated enough on this type of dynamic, but isn't putting him back in the middle of college football, like playing college football, like you wouldn't make an alcoholic a rep for Jack Daniels? Like you're putting him right back in the middle of the setting that got him sideways in the first place. Does that make sense? It doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah, it does make sense. And you see, what this will do is, it will set an example for other people that have a problem, and especially for their families. And, I think it's absolutely insane and immoral, FanDuels and what the professional sports and ESPN are doing. I think they're creating a whole generation of potential gambling addicts. But again, if people are not responsible for what they do, how do they learn? I mean, if it turned out that, you could get off for a DUI, or someone could, does something on methamphetamine and breaks the law, and someone comes in and says, oh, it's okay. We have to have compassion and we have to get them treatment. Now, I'm all for the compassion and all for the treatment. But again, if people aren't held accountable, then I just think it's a slippery slope. And I just don't think it's moral.
As it pertains to your experience in treating gambling addicts, and I don't want to just completely compare it to, other recovery processes. I just am more familiar with other areas of addiction than I am with gambling. What have you seen as far as treatment/recovery that does allow for getting better, long-term recovery that lasts? What does that look like?
Right. Yeah, what it looks like is a similar situation with other addictions. My experience is there has to be a 2-year plan, and that usually involves some sort of rehab, intense therapy. Group therapy is probably the most powerful, because what they may not take in from an individual therapist, they very often will listen to a peer. But it is a long process because it is so available, and it's the kind of thing where it is, like I said, a slippery slope. But we treat it in the same way. We treat it as a brain disease that has led people to be willing to basically hurt the people that they love the most and put everything, including their career, at risk. I mean, that is one of the signs of insanity, but it also is a disease. And so we have to help people with that, but we won't help them if they don't have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's what we've been discussing. I don't know of an addict who gets well without suffering some sort of consequence based off of decisions that you've made while using. And no matter what went into play that led you to make the bad decision, you made the bad decision. And the consequence piece is one of the most vital parts of getting well, right? Getting through the consequences that you have to suffer as a result of the choices you made.
That is correct. And that's why I think this is just such a difficult and potentially dangerous precedent to have, because think about all these young kids who may be 10 grand in the hole. They may be, 40,000, and they may make that phone call to their dad or their mom and say, listen, I'm a gambling addict, and, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I need your help, and please bail me out, and I promise I will never do this again. Well, the problem is, until they get real treatment, they can't make that promise. And again, they're going to hear about this, and this guy may just slide through, and, his life may not really be hurt at all, and these consequences go away. And I don't know. It's just it's a very difficult thing, and I think the odds are not good for him going forward in his life.
Hey, before I say you loose, if we do have any listeners that feel like they're in a bad spot with whatever it is, a substance, gambling, what would you tell them to do?
Well, let's first ask them to start out and get some help. See a therapist who is who is experienced in this, and then it's about assessing, where someone is. And I believe in the lowest level of care first. If someone can see a therapist once or twice a week, that is great. If they can't, then you look at intensive outpatients, and if they really can't, they go to a residential rehab. But it's basically taking this seriously. And And the leverage comes usually from the family, because very often the addict, if he or she is choosing what they're going to do, are going to choose the easier way. And a lot of times that's why interventions work, is that families come in and they say, if you won't do this, if you won't do what is required, we're not going to support you.
Hey, Ed, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. We'll set you loose. Let's get out and golf soon, okay?
All right, Spence, thanks.
Hey, Ed Peterson, addiction specialist, longtime family therapist, and yeah, just trying to get some insight on exactly what this is. Just not educated on it very much at all. But we'll catch a break.